Thank you, Paul. Yeah. Yeah, so in fact, if I may say so, this is going to be 2 talks in one. Even though I've been a member of the Society for something like 52 years, it's the first time I've actually given a talk to the division. So it's the first and the last talk together. So and also, Wally, thank you so much for your huge promotion. Dr. Freeman.
Thank you.
I didn't even do honours because I was caught up. A lot of you, especially younger ones, may not be aware. There were real problems in the 1960s with national service. I got caught up with national service. I finished my ordinary degree and that was the end of it because I was, for the devotion to the state. Anyway, so that's beside the point. Yeah, so my role has been a bit of a troubleshooter for a number of years in the department. And one of the things I've been involved in is Section 19 of the Mining Act. Under Section 19, the Minister for Mines can invite a company to apply for a tenement, which is a pretty significant sort of thing for him to do. It's different from normal. So I'm the only specialist in the department who handles that sort of stuff these days. Yeah. So the talk, if I just stand back here, general overview down there. Just to put you into position, there's a couple of the fancy yellow diamonds. I'll make a bit of a mention of those. This is the Kimberley, Broome Derby. We have the Argyle mine, which is just closing down, as you're aware. Bow River, derived from the alluvials that were washed out of the Argyle mine. Big Spring, that was about the first actual really significant diamondiferous pipe found in West Australia. And we've got the Ellendale field as well, which is what I'm talking about. Ellendale, 1930s, Rex Priday at UWA, brilliant. He actually did some work on the lamproites and said, hey, looking at the chemistry, this could be diamondiferous. But at that stage, and in fact, even as late as the late 60s, no, diamonds only come from kimberlites. They don't come from lamproites. No one had raised that. So his prediction, 40 years later, was proven to be correct. Good science, really good science there. 1968, there was a joint venture. They weren't particularly looking for diamonds, but they actually found 9 diamonds in a sample, a total of 1.65 carats, to the northwest from Ellendale. No one's been able to follow up on that since. Where are they from? Were they salted? Who knows? But they weren't looking for diamonds. Really started in 1976 when the Columbaroo joint venture, which eventually morphed into the Ashton joint venture, which you probably heard of, they started exploration, specifically looking for diamonds in the Kimberley. Ewan Tyler, geologist, he had fantastic insight. I think we owe him a lot for his perseverance in getting the whole thing going. 1977 to 1980, lots of traces found all the way through the Kimberleys. In fact, I suspect there's probably still some pipes there which are yet waiting to be found, but they could be buried under hundreds of metres of younger sediments. Eventually, the Ellendale was found, the Ellendale field was found, but then they found Argyle. Argyle was rich and good, and there's no question. So they just dropped interest in Ellendale, focused on the Argyle type. In fact, it was interesting, the 2 key geologists referred to it as the AK1, Argyle Kimberlite number 1. There's no kimberlite there, as it turns out, but that's part of the story. Subsequently, exploration around Ellendale, between 80 and 150 pipes. If you call one pipe, which has successive eruptions, 3, that's the debate. Ellendale 4, these were the 2 that were started as mining. Ellendale 4, Ellendale 9. 4 was found because it was actually a surface anomaly. It was a hollow, and people, what's a hollow? And they looked, they actually found, on their hands and knees, the geologists found indicated minerals with their eyes. Ellendale 9 was found through being an aeromagnetic anomaly. So diamondiferous pipes are pretty good. This is straight from the GeoView. All the diamond occurrences shown with triangles, plus also mines and things like that. So it's not just the occurrences, but it's also deposits that have been mined and other minerals there. And we have the green areas there, the no-go areas of conservation land. Quite extensive, quite big area. This is the Ellendale, Ellendale 9, Ellendale 4. We have the Big Springs. That was, as mentioned, the first diamonds found in the state. So after they got Ellendale going, they started, the Ashton joint venture went back to Ellendale, did some large diameter drilling, bulk sampling and so on, found that there really only 2 or 3 pipes which did have significant grade, sampled those, worked out the grade is too low. Interestingly, from what I can read, they were focusing on the shallow material and assuming that you're looking at alluvial concentrations of diamonds. Okay, diamond grade below will be lower. Interestingly, the surface grades were the same as in the pipes below, as it would turn out later, which is an interesting concept. Through that presumption, they walked away. I think that's an important principle in geology in many things. So 2001, the Ashton joint venture sold the project to this Kimberley Diamond Company. By then, there was a state agreement for the Argyle mine, so that area was removed. Kimberley Diamond reevaluated the field, focusing on these 2 sites, Ellendale 9, Ellendale 4, plus the paleoalluvial channels. And they continued to find the diamonds there. Oops. Sorry, that turned off then. I've missed a slide there. Oops. I've been told, no, I can't go back on slides because the recording. Sorry, that's all right. I can work around it. So Kimberley Diamond Company started the mining. They mined the Ellendale 9 site between about 2006 and 2013, I think, the number of years. Ellendale 4, they only mined for 2 years, campaign mined and processed that. But then they got into some strife. On the 1st of July 2015, all the staff who were there were told, meeting. Everyone thought, safety meeting. And they went into it. They were told, mine's closing, get on the bus. Everyone was bussed out, back to the airport, flown to Perth. They weren't even allowed to return to their dongas to collect their personal gear. So people who'd been working there, they had their laptops, their computers, they had doing all their home things, home finance. They had to leave them behind. Not very happy people. And the interesting thing was, it was the 1st of July, because these people had left even things like credit cards in their dongas, they were flown to Perth. Hey, we've got to go to somewhere else. They couldn't even buy tickets. Significant issue for the staff, as you can imagine. Anyway, so in August 2015, the company was put into administration. In October, liquidators were appointed. Now, they're the heavy movers. They immediately started auctioning all the plant and equipment at the site. I saw one reference to a nice brand new little 4-wheel drive, 4-door ute, $5,000, almost brand new. People got some awfully good bargains there. And then they used the Corporations Act to declare they had to disclaim any further responsibility. So they stepped aside and they left it to the state government to operate it. So it took us nearly 18 months to work out what to do with the legality in the mines department, because we'd never confronted this before. All of a sudden, we had a company walking away. We had all the rehab, all the plant equipment, everything that was left. So in January 2019, the Minister for Mines cancelled the mining lease and created the Section 19 exemption over the area, which removed it from the operation of the Mining Act. Then in 2016, now this is an interesting aspect, we had some interesting issues with respect to the chairman of the company. He flew into Sydney from overseas once, I think in late 2016. The federal police met him, arrested him for fraud. He was subsequently found not guilty of fraud, but it's very hard to prove fraud in the courts. But then in 2016, project manager was appointed. She started doing some strange things. The CCC investigated her, and she was arrested on fraud as well, in breach of the Public Service Act, which is interesting. So then I was appointed in late 2017. Minister approved me calling for expressions of interest. Request for expressions of interest was released in the middle of the year. This is a 50-page document. Half of it is legalities, but that was what went public for requests for expressions of interest, which is required by government process. Even though the minister can invite, the minister has to do it in a way that seems to be even-handed, balanced. So everyone who's interested, I had submissions from across the world, which was interesting. They were evaluated by a specialist committee. I had an economist, an environmental scientist, a geologist, and a mining engineer involved. And they went through, they shortlisted 2 companies, did a report, went to the minister. In the minister, I was really impressed. There was one small paragraph right in the back which said, Minister, if you are interested, you might think of interviewing the shortlisted companies with the presence of a probity consultant. Blow me down. Ministers came back, yeah, I want to interview them with the probity consultant. Wow, which impressed me that our Minister Johnson, actually went through in such detail to read the report like that. So the Minister invited Gibb River Diamonds. Gibb River Diamonds looked at the area, 138 square kilometre, 123 square kilometre, huge. Rent, expenditure commitments, even just shire rates are going to be over $500,000 a year for the company. I said, oh no, we can't afford that. So they cherry-picked and picked the single pass. So we then put it to the Minister, look, Minister, would you like to invite the other company, the second runner? Okay. So they came in, hey, we got a fantastic thing. So we had 2 companies interested in progressing, not just one. So we had 2 sources of funding, which is great. So from a state perspective, beautiful. Gibb River, it's selling its Ellendale assets to a company called Burgundy Diamonds, which has some pretty good financial assets. So this is the situation now. For those of you involved in tenements, that black boundary is the boundary of the old mining lease. As I mentioned, quite large. Presented interesting problems because the minister had to invite companies only within that area. So it took about 6 iterations between myself and Gibb River to actually work out what they were going to get invited to. So they've got an exploration licence there, another one there. Of course, they butt only across the corner. The Mining Act says exploration licences must have sides in common in particular blocks. They had a corner, so they finished up with 2. Prospecting licences there, prospecting licence there, another couple down here, and one interesting bit which I'll mention. And they wanted a mining lease over the Ellendale mine site, the plant area and dumps and alluvial channels. That's over the Ellendale 4 area plus dumps, and what they wanted was access to a paleoalluvial channel which was proven to hold diamonds through there. India Board Diamond Holdings was the second company. They were interested in a mining lease through there, exploration licence through there, and a prospecting licence through there. And I'll mention more about them shortly. The exploration and prospecting tenements have been granted. Mining leases, they're still negotiating to get those granted. Exploration for diamonds, involves regional bulk sampling. You have to take big samples, 20 to 50 kilograms, because of the fact of how diamonds occur. The typical focus is on the indicator minerals that typically occur with diamondiferous kimberlites, or kimberlites, never mind diamondiferous. The interesting thing is garnet, picroilmenite, chromite, chromium-bearing diopside, and microdiamonds. But the interesting thing was, kimberlites themselves apparently don't have much chromite. The fact that the Columbaroo joint venture recognised that the kimberlites had chromite and chromite anomalous minerals, that was the first. So they had to keep that secret for quite a while. Typical approach, geological mapping, sampling, aeromagnetics, airborne EM and airborne gravity. So the focus on anomalies, typical good geology. One of the interesting things I came across with these bower rigs. I'd never heard of these before. That's how they work. Those 2 things still there. They still have the wear parts around the bottom and around the top. So awfully big diameter drilling, but you need a bit of equipment. That's a good indication to me of what you need to do to be able to sample for diamonds in kimberlites. Having found a pipe, what are they after? Diamonds, that's it. Diamonds are a girl's best friend, as you know. How do they occur? Well, often you get these beautiful octahedra or deformed octahedra. Sometimes you get these strange, odd sort of things. How they formed, I'm not sure, and this is what they're after, of course, in the end. The smallest they find tend to be for industrial purposes. Biggest diamond ever found, the Cullinan, found in 1908. 3,100 carats, 620 grams. Not a bad size. A lot of that's now in the Royal Crown, so which is interesting. Most diamonds are water clear, but the colours, they're spectacular. Personally, I was never very interested in colours. I saw they had a display here in the casino a few years ago. Oh, they're a world apart. They're so different. They really are. I can see why people are attracted to them. How do they form? Well, the actual form, it's just an allotrope of carbon, as you probably all be aware. Same as graphite. I think of it in the sense of, you look at the charcoal glowing in a campfire. Oh, same sort of thing as diamonds, but not quite. Most diamonds actually are dated at billions of years old. A lot of them are Archean age. The carbon has been scavenged through long residence side time within the mantle, scavenging carbon out of carbon as an atom, probably carbon through all sorts of different chemical reactions going on in the mantle. The stability field of diamonds, pressures of 4 gigapascals, pretty significant, over 1,000 Celsius. 140 kilometres depth, that's a long way down. And if a diamond is brought up and kept at a high temperature, it immediately turns into, well, it slowly turns into graphite. So these pipes have to move fast. Modelling suggests the order of 30 metres per second. That's pretty fast. That's the order of 100 kilometres per hour. I don't understand it myself, but pretty significant. And the other interesting thing, the kimberlitic pipes are found in areas of crustal stability and shields. Ellendale is a bit different, but it's on the edge of a shield feature. What happens when the magma gets to the surface in the Kimberley? We have the Grant group, carboniferous to Permian sediments, chock-a-block full of water at surface, porous sandstone. You've got a magma, 1,000 Celsius, kaboom! You produce these fantastic ferromagmatic explosions, circular holes. This is one in Western Victoria. This is Coriat, nearly 2 kilometres across, which same sort of thing, same as all those volcanoes in Western Victoria and Southeast and South Australia. They produce these Mars, shallow holes full of water now. If the magma continues producing, is being produced for some time, it has the ability to dry out the sediment, and so you can then actually see the volcanic rock itself. Otherwise, the volcanic rock is destroyed because of this reaction with the groundwater. With Ellendale, they've occurred over about 4 million years, 150 volcanoes. I'm used to people, do you realise 150 volcanoes in West Australia? No. Yeah, it's a different world. People just don't appreciate it. Unfortunately, there's no sign of the volcanoes. The surface evidence has been destroyed. So what you see, that's the biggest one, about 30 metres high, Mount North, which is the original lamproite plug. This is one on the road between Ellendale 4 and Ellendale 9, next to the track, which is there. It's all horribly weathered rock. You don't see much fresh rock in that. But in some places you can actually find fresh lamproite at surface. The magma, as mentioned, diamond mantle derived, typically magnesium, potassium rich circuit pore, extreme ultramafic composition. Prior to the Kimberley fields, kimberlite was the only source, which I think is funny because through our Kimberley we destroyed the concept that you only get diamonds in kimberlites. The lucite bearing, there's two populations. We have the lucite bearing lamproites, we have the the olivine-bearing lamproites. The first, they don't contain diamonds. The olivine lamproites do. About 40% of them are the lucite-bearing lamproites and with no diamonds. Chemistry, typically quite ultramorphic, high potassium, high magnesium. Minerals, olivine, phlogopite, they're the dominant ones, lucite, lesser apatite, and various amphiboles, various feldspathoids, many trace elements. When the pipes come up and you produce the Freya magmatic explosion, they talk about having a wine glass shape, as you can see here with that one. So you get the original reaction producing the explosion when the lava mixed with the water. If it then continues producing lava, you finish up with the core of the lamproite rock. That's a bit theoretical. As mentioned, once the groundwater is depleted, you might actually see that. There's multiple pipes formed. E9, depending on whose report you read, there's either 3 or 5 or even more pipes at Ellendale 9. So in detail, you finish up with what they refer to as a sandy toof, which is a toof which is contaminated with the sandstone, with the original host rock, usually lower grade than the toof. Yeah, that's around the edge. Then you finish up with the toof itself, a fragmental lamproite formed during the explosive reaction. The rapid chilling allows the diamonds to be retained. But in the lamproite itself, both the fine and the coarse grain, it cools more slowly. And I mentioned an anecdotal comment at the end. So the diamonds themselves just don't occur in the original rock. View of the Ellendale 9 looking towards the east. Here you see the toof with the ground group sediments around the outside of it. As mentioned, water seeping down everywhere, even now. And that is a bit of the original lamproite. That's all that's seen in that particular part of the pit there. Typically, rocks have a low thermal conductivity. Toofaceous rocks have been water quenched, so they've cooled quickly, and the lamproite's been preserved from being reverted into graphite. Where it's not being quenched, then they are retained. The diamonds, typically octahedral, usually rounded. I've wondered whether they're from, is that the transport, or is that how they formed? Because to me, theoretically, you should get the crystals forming on the sharp points and growing from the sharp ends. That's what you tend to think of as far as energy release of the crystals growing is concerned. Ellendale diamonds, from tiny, well below 1 carat. The first diamond they found was 0.03 carats, which is pretty small. Largest, 18.5. Now, the interesting thing is, about 1% of them are the fancy, 0.1% are the fancy yellow diamonds. The industrial diamonds, 99.9%, gave them the money to actually operate the mine. 0.1% is what gave them the profit. Those are the fancy yellows. Pretty significant impact of heat. 7 hectares in the E9 pipe, 30 million cubic metres, 1,000 Celsius. Huge amount of heat going into the system. So it produces fantastic amount of potential for thermosiphon effects with the groundwater circulating around, dissolving, precipitating and so on. So you get precipitates of siliceous and other components, lime are common, and many accessory minerals. And I think they potentially, that's why the Mineralogical Society was interested in me giving a talk, because they could think, oh, there could be lots of other interesting minerals. So here you have Echelon style quartz veins, a whole network of veining there in the wall of the open cut. Smaller scale, that's the part of the toof with a pebble which has had the veinlets through it. Here the rock is totally replaced with material from the reactions. And it's typical of a lamproite, where you get the veining, as I mentioned, quartz. I'm sure there's a lot of carbonate in that as well. Many of the pipes are diamond bearing, only E4 and E9, plus another one, E4 satellite pipe, which grade between 3.5 and 7.6 carats per 100 tonnes. 100 tonnes of rock to get that quantity, and 5 carats in a gram. Many pipes, about 18 of them have been found to hold diamonds, but the rest well below that level. Mentioned that only the olivine lamproites have the diamonds, obviously, not the lucite, obviously tapping different parts of the mantle with different chemistry. Largest pipe, E6, 106 hectares, just over a square kilometre. It's a pretty big feature. Interestingly, they occur roughly along northwest-southeast lineaments, parallel to the edge of the Kimberley. Dating's been done on rubidium strontium on separates, the phlogopite separates from the lavas, 29.9 to 80.3 million years. So quite tightly constrained, 150 of them within 4 million years. So obviously a fairly significant tectonic event going on then. And there's a poorly constrained gradation of ages. So either the plate was moving towards the northwest, or the hotspot, which they were derived from, was moving towards the southeast, probably the former. In fact, there's been correlations of the fact that Ellendale and the other diamond, the young diamond features in the Kimberley, were related to the Australian plate starting to hit against the Timor area. Diamonds, as you all know, hardest natural substance. It's also, interestingly, has one of the highest thermal conductivity things on Earth, but not only does the hardness, but also the fact that it conducts heat makes it very important industrially. So using it for cutting things, it can actually conduct the heat away within itself. Best known as clear crystals, the high refractive index, 2.5 to 2.4. Dispersion, 0.04. Hey, that means when the light goes through it, it's split. Hence, you cut them at the right angles, the accent on the colour separation, the flashing, fantastic. So, diamond marketing quotes precise colours, clarity figures. Here's a few. These are from the original finding at Ellendale. You notice that they're high lustre, but also all tend to be rounded. These are from recent finds, which I'll mention shortly, from the L channel from the India Board diamond. But one of the really interesting things I have found is the extreme focus on colour of diamonds. You start looking at the details, I get confused because they go from the fancy yellow has a very formal definition amongst diamond gemologists, right through to colourless. When you start looking, yeah, you can see colour, but when you start looking at the differences, wow. There's a lot of perception going in there, and there's a fair bit of science behind it these days. So, very, very attractive things. Came up, oh yeah, the oldest diamond we've actually found in some old diggings, I think about 930 BC. A diamond's been found in some diggings in the Middle East. The 1930s, diamonds weren't worth that much. De Beers put a huge amount of money into advertising. Diamonds are a girl's best friend. Diamonds are forever. All those catch things, those were De Beers. Marketing. Wow. And it's had the effect that it's still going on these days. To me, they're obscene. They're crazy. That ring there was sold early this year, $65 million. One ring. 5.7 million carats, $1 million per carat. Multiply that by 5. $20 million, $22 million for a gram. Where's gold by comparison? It's worthless. Ellendale, by comparison, the prices quoted there range from about $150 for the gem quality diamonds up to $400. It's still not to be sneered at. Now this is really interesting from the geological and especially from an exploration perspective. The grades between 3.5 and 7.6 carats per 100 tonnes, equivalent to 0.7 to 1.5 grams per 100 tonnes, or 0.007 to 0.15 grams per tonne. Now how does that relate to other mineral values in the ground? Hence that point about the nugget effect. You find one decent diamond in a sample, boy, can that have an effect on your average grades, on your average values? So sampling is such an important thing. Exploration is very difficult. Large samples needed to find any diamonds. Nugget effect, alive and well. Any deal with the gold, yeah, it's a child's play compared with diamonds. So what are we looking at now? So we have the two X-mines, Ellendale 9 and Ellendale 4. Figures quoted by the Geological Survey, summing all the public and some confidential information that was available to them. 19.6 million tonnes at an average grade of 2 carats per 100 tonnes. $210 million in the ground. E4, 29.2, 5.7 carats per 100 tonnes. Roughly $300 million in the ground as it seems. So those are the things that sold the interest in the area to the companies. This is Ellendale 4, oops, I might be wrong there, never mind. Okay, Ellendale 9. So this is the Ellendale 9 pits. You see the odd shapes of them here, with the waste dump there, tailings facilities, plant area down here. I've been told the very last bit of scavenging they did at Ellendale 9, they couldn't even turn the earth moving machinery in. They had to drive in, pick up and drive back out again. You can see a pretty narrow slot there. Let's play it, sorry. Anyway, so back to the future. So now we're looking at, based on current figures, about 49 million tonnes at 4.2 average carats per 100 tonnes in both the hard rock and also in the dumps at the site, with average value of $270 per carat. You look at it works out, I think it did some sums, $50, $80 per tonne of material in the ground. It's potentially mineable, but how much can you get to? The pits are full of water. How do you get rid of water? It's an interesting problem geotechnically. There's significant cost. How do you create a cutback? You've got to go down a bit before you can get to the diamond. So the paleoalluvial channels are the first target now. That's keen, and I think that has to be the prime focus. Gibb River, selling its assets to Burgundy Diamonds, is looking to the west. The Blinder Channel, or Channel 5, which is looking pretty good. India Bore is focusing to the south along El Channel, and there's some damn good geology behind that one. So this is the overall picture: Ellendale 4, Ellendale 9, with the mining lease of Gibb River in green, in blue, and the Gibb River, and the India Board mining lease application in blue. So here we have the Blinder channels. These were found quite some time ago, many years ago in fact. They seemed to be attractive, but people didn't focus on them. And I think corporate decision making just wasn't suitable. They were interested in going for the hard rocks. They look reasonably good to me. India Bore, they've done some terrific work, and they focused on this area here. Plus, they found a channel which runs up through there, which is looking pretty good. Now, you saw some work that was done on that one, some of the diamonds. There's about 50 kilometres of channel, so I think it's looking pretty good. To the west, the Blinder. This is E9, Ellendale 9. Modern topography shown in grading from red, the highest, to blue and lowest. So the current perspective is, okay, the diamonds were dragged from the erosion, were dragged to the northwest along the channel, and sure enough, the channel is there. Pretty standard. India Bore, they stepped back, and they actually got some really good geology. They really looked at the geology, the paleogeography of the site. I said, no. Early on, not long after the diamonds were formed, flows to the south into the then Gulf. So they modelled diamonds. So this is Ellendale 4 here, Ellendale 9 there. So their model was channels flow this way using really good science. As you can see, Geological Survey mapping there. They subsequently have explored that. They were able to get into there with an exploration licence. They've actually proved there's good diamonds there. 2019 bulk sampling, 950 diamonds. They've sent some across to Antwerp. Really good values. They haven't told me what the values are, but I'm dying to hear actually. Some of the diamonds look really good. But they've got something pretty good going there. So this is what India Board did. This is a vertical view of their operation with the processing plant, camp area, processing plant, just heavy, fairly basic heavy media separation. That's in the pit, and these are some of the diamonds they found. All looking quite good. These were cut before they sent it. It was interesting actually, because they wanted to put in some big sampling. The limit in the Mining Act, 10,000 tonnes. They want to move 50,000 tonnes. So it's actually really, it's an interesting perspective from my perspective as a geologist working in the Mines Department, how good science is pushing the Mining Act and changes that are required to the Mining Act. And we've seen it more recently with things like salt lake potassium extraction requires some significant changes to the Act and the regulations. But because the Mining Act doesn't allow for it, doesn't mean companies don't stop. No, go for it, push. So where to now? Granted the mining leases within the Section 19 area, native title is holding them up, which is unfortunate. They have to develop the mining proposals and the funding models. Burgundy, they've got some pretty good assets. India Board, it's a private company with private concern. I'm not sure where they're getting the money from, but they seem to have some pretty good arguments that they're fine. In the meantime, we've got the issue of the unsold part equipment. You might have read there's been some major criticism of the department, of government. Oh, why did you let this happen? Unfortunately, even though people are saying the Mines Department should have predicted it, very hard to predict things that are going on in industry at times. So what we've been left with, oh, that works, okay. Okay, so we're left with some of the detail plant, trommel there, conveyors, plant left behind, buildings. They still had left all some of the diamond sorters in the plant, which nobody else wanted. That had been left. There've been some major allocations that the department made of boo-boo. There's been figures quoted in the media up to $80 million to rehab. No, we've actually recently had some figures produced for us for recovery, and it's much, much smaller than that. But the point is, we now have the Mine Rehabilitation Fund, which has funding in to cover that sort of thing. The industry, the community, or government doesn't have to find the money, it's there, which is a fantastic bit of foresight by the department to create the Mine Rehab Fund. I'll try the mouse again. Oops. Right, so quick acknowledgements, number of Demers colleagues, all those who've helped me with the project. Company directors have been helpful with providing these images, number of websites, and interestingly, it was the MinSoc that first actually got me to give the talk. So.